IELTS Writing. 5 connective words and devices to improve your Band 9 essays. In this tutorial, we're going to look at why we should use connecting words. We're going to look at examples of how to use them, especially with contrasts, and also we're going to look at what's called legato and staccato, just stylistic elements that we've mentioned previously. So first of all, why are we going to use connecting words in our essays? Firstly, they'll improve the flow of your writing, especially from one sentence to another and from one paragraph to another. Secondly, they're going to clarify the relative importance of different aspects of your argument or narrative. That's more higher level. Thirdly, these connecting words can clarify the logical relationships between different aspects of your essay. Now, this might seem a little bit high level, but hang in there, we're going to explain it all, and we're going to use examples and try and make it as straightforward as possible, and most importantly, how we can use these elements, these connective words, in our IELTS essays. So first of all, why are we going to connect at all? Well, first of all, let's have a look at what our writing would look like without connecting words and phrases. So we'll have a look at a collection of short sentences. Television is an important industry. It reaches a mass audience. It employs millions of people worldwide. It creates an immediate effect on viewers. It allows viewers concretely to visualize world events. It can become an important influence on events. So each time there was a full stop, I just tapped the computer. Now that paragraph is staccato, okay? And it's very unpleasant. It's repetitive. It's a repetitive paragraph. 4 of its 5 sentences begin with the pronoun it. Also, as I said, it's a staccato paragraph that the rhythm is unpleasantly broken up. It doesn't flow in the way that a paragraph should, with a pleasing variety of sentence lengths and sentence openings. So how do we correct this situation? So at the moment, the separate sentences in the paragraph are like separate individual items in a shop. No indication is given of the relationships between the different ideas in this passage. So let's try to connect them more effectively. Television is an important industry. It reaches a mass audience and employs millions of people worldwide. It creates an immediate effect on viewers, and it allows viewers concretely to visualize world events. Also, it can become an important influence on events. Do you think that was an improvement? Well, slightly. It was a slight improvement because we've used connective words such as and also, but they just simply can push or shunt the sentences together. So they aren't really any better. So we've still got the full stops that we've used before, slightly less, because now we've pushed them together using also and. It's slightly better with the flow, but it's still a lot of like rambling disorganization. So can we do better? Yes. To do better, we need to use connecting words and phrases which do more than just connect. So let's look at the first 3 sentences as an example. Television is an important industry. Not only does it reach a mass audience, but it also employs millions of people worldwide. Now we've used a very useful structure of not only does it do this, comma, but it also does this. Now this is an improvement because, first of all, with the help of the colon, the three sentences are now connected into a single flowing whole. But the sentence is now also internally structured. The construction of not only but implies that the first point is more self-evident, the second more surprising. Yeah? So not only is Ben Worthington a world champion squash player, he's also a CrossFit master. I'm just joking, I'm none of those. But what I'm trying to say is that it could be even more surprising that I was a CrossFit master. Okay? So that's how we need to employ that structure. And what it does is it makes the relationship between the 2 points we're mentioning, it makes it more interesting. Okay? So not only was I a squash master, I'm also a CrossFit master. Or in this case, let's have a look at that example again. Not only does it reach a mass audience, but it also employs millions of people worldwide. Can you see? So it reaches a mass audience is important, and it's quite obvious, straightforward. But this extra point is that it employs millions of people worldwide. So you can see. Now, that sentence has a good legato in sentence structure. Therefore, it's not only a matter of linking every point together piece by piece. It also depends upon establishing relations of contrast between different points. These contrasts can be of various kinds. In the remainder of this presentation, we're going to look at 4 kinds of contrast employed by 4 different connecting words. So the first one we did, because this tutorial is 5 connecting words, was not only but, and the next 4 are furthermore, consequently, nevertheless, and for example. So each of these connectives implies a different relationship between 2 sentences or arguments. So let's see how furthermore changes the feel of our argument. So we have television is an important industry. Not only does it reach a mass audience, but it employs millions of people worldwide. Furthermore, it creates an immediate effect on viewers. So furthermore is a way of adding interest to what might otherwise be merely a boring addition. So it implies that it's an additional point which the reader might not have thought of. The key here is an additional point. An additional point, an additional interest point. So it points up the contrast between the quantitative points made in the previous sentence and the qualitative account of television as a medium made in this one. Okay? So we're kind of linking the 2 previous points we've made. So another useful connecting word is consequently. So going back to our television sentence, we have furthermore, it creates an immediate effect on viewers and it allows viewers concretely to visualize world events, semicolon. Consequently, it can become an important influence on events. So how does consequently change the force of the end of the paragraph? Well, the connection between the last 2 points is no longer merely one of addition. It's now one of casual entailment. The first point leads to or entails the second. Logical or casual entailment is always a stronger connection than mere addition. So mere addition could be said as furthermore, or even in addition to this, it also does this. But if we're adding casual entailment, I love the expression casual entailment. So it's much stronger. Okay? And as I said, the first point leads to the second. This is the causal entailment, okay? And this is one of the powerful devices we can use to improve flow. So just take a step back. If we have X in addition to Y in addition to D, that's okay. But if we have X leads us to Y as it does to Z, you can see there's a smoothness there. Now, next point, nevertheless. Nevertheless implies a contrastive relationship between 2 points. It doesn't necessarily have to negate the first point, but it does qualify it. So let's take an example. Alexander Joy was a celebrated jazz composer. He died in poverty in 1957. So we've got 2 sentences there. Now, the lack of connections between these 2 sentences might give a misleading impression. It might seem to imply that the natural consequences of being a celebrated jazz composer is to die in poverty. So let's fix it. Alexander Joy was a celebrated jazz composer. Full stop. Nevertheless, he died in poverty in 1957. Now, the second statement, nevertheless, comma, he died in poverty in 1957, qualifies the first. You see? So it's even though he was a celebrated jazz composer, he died in poverty. So we're emphasizing there. So sometimes you want to indicate that subsequent points are illustrations of the main point. And this is extremely useful for IELTS because when we're building our paragraph, if we're indicating subsequent points or building up illustrations of our previous points, not only are we strengthening our argument, making our argument stronger and stronger with each additional sentence, but we're also going to use details. We're also going to we're going to improve the flow. We're going to give like a real world example, and this is exactly what we do in the online course, in the sentence guide online course. We build up the paragraph exactly like this, and a key point of the course is to learn how to give strong examples which offer illustrations. So in the course we talk about using for example, and it kind of links and subordinates the points that follow the first point. So let's just see how it works in this example. So William the Conqueror introduced many reforms to English governance. He ordered the compilation of the Domesday Book. He increased the crown's control over the church. That was the first sentence, okay? Now we're going to look at it again with using for example. William the Conqueror introduced many reforms to English governance. For example, he ordered the compilation of the Domesday Book, and he increased the crown's control over the church. Now, the last 2 points in that last paragraph, the last 2 points are properly subordinated to and illustrative of the first. Now, it's strengthening the example, it's strengthening our argument, and it's basically drawing a picture, it's giving you a reference to of what the reforms William the Conqueror introduced into English governance. So this is why examples are very important, and we go into them in a lot of detail in the online course, which, by the way, I should mention, is going to increase in price soon, probably in the next week or 2. So if you're thinking about taking the IELTS, have a look at the course, and it's probably a good idea to start as soon as possible. Now, final point, let's just summarize what we have covered in this class. So in this presentation, we've learned how and why to use connecting words in sentences. We've learnt to achieve a legato style in sentence construction, and we've learnt how to point up contrasts in our sentences. Now, I'd recommend you listening to this podcast again, or listening to this tutorial again, maybe writing out the sentences, and then you'll be able to see for your own eyes while you're listening the differences between them. This will help you get a real grip of what's being taught. Also, it transfers the learning from passive, a merely passive exercise of sitting on the couch or on the bus, whatever, and just absorbing, to active learning, where we're taking out the pen and we're following the instructions and we're implementing what we've been learned. And of course, there's times for passive learning and there's times for active learning. Obviously, I think personally the most powerful is active learning. This is why I encourage students to get feedback on their essays, because it's the fastest way to improve. So that's it from me. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you enjoyed this tutorial and this podcast, please leave a review in the iTunes or on SoundCloud or on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this, or even on YouTube. Leave us a comment. And yeah, also if you send us a screenshot of that review that you left, you can get an essay correction, actually. Just send it in to our wonderful staff, and we'd be happy to show you how to take the next step. Okay, so have a great week, and remember to keep on pushing with your IELTS preparation. Eventually you will get there, trust me. Okay, have a great day, and thank you very much for listening. Take care.